This is Sterling Huggins. On June 2nd, 1963, I was privileged to give the commencement address for the Gettysburg Area High School graduates in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. In looking back, the address seems as appropriate for the future of graduates today as it was in 1963. The title of this address is The Price of Security. If I were sitting where you are today, knowing what I know now, the one thing that would concern me most would be security. Where can I find it? What will it cost? Especially during times of heavy unemployment, much attention is directed towards security. In the search for security, many people assume that it can be found in a job or in having a certain amount of money, or both. In thinking about these two ideas, we realize that both can be lost. One might conclude that security isn't found in a job or in having a certain amount of money, and then we find ourselves anxiously seeking a new formula for security. Realistically, there isn't any so-called formula for finding security. However, by looking at some of the thoughts and statements of people around us, we can develop a pattern of what it takes to be reasonably secure. Some months ago, an Air Force colonel remarked that some people are looking for the easy way out and are not really interested in doing a good job. A jeweler and watchmaker in a small city commented on skilled trades, pointing out that too many young people with whom he talks do not have the patience or pride of workmanship that is so necessary to become a journeyman in a skilled trade. Managers and other leaders in the business world often complain that when they request information from an employee, they do not get the information on time and seldom, if ever, get more information than they ask for, which many times, incidentally, is needed or helpful. These and other similar statements are often heard today and indicate a lack of accepting responsibility on the part of individuals. The assuming of responsibility is a first step toward achieving security. When you are faced with responsibility, whether delegated or inherited from an employer or inherited in your job by virtue of self-employment, you have a choice to make. You can either accept it or reject it. It is obvious from these statements that rejection of it will not pave the way for your security. Assuming you do accept it, there are still two hurdles that will determine how well you build towards security. One is concerned with how you accept responsibility, and the other is what you do with it. The amount of enthusiasm you have for accepting responsibility is reflected in your manner, tone of voice, or by your words. It is evident when you volunteer than being told to do something. What you do with the responsibility after it has been accepted becomes important. In a sense, we might compare this with what you do with your education. You may have good grades or average grades to offer for your graduation, but so have thousands of other students across our nation. You may have 16 or more credits toward graduation, but so have thousands of other students across our nation. The one thing that can make you different from the thousands of other students is what you do with your credits and education. What you do with your responsibility is the one thing that can help make you more secure. Once you have assumed that first job or move into a school of higher education, they will forget your number of credits, they will forget your grades, but they will never forget what you do and how you go about doing it. These things will be recorded and will follow you every step of the way. Now, we mentioned the assuming of responsibility as a first step toward achieving security, but only a first step. Suppose we consider some additional statements to further develop this pattern of security. Once a manager was asked what college degree he looks for when hiring a person. He replied, "I am not really too concerned about the type of degree, but rather the kind of person that I will be getting. I look for someone who can be trusted and who appears honest with themselves to the extent of exemplifying an attitude of giving rather than getting." A statement of this kind indicates faith in the essential element of service as that which will bring due reward and security. This type of faith was certainly reflected in Abraham Lincoln's statement when he said as a young man, "I will study and get ready, and someday my chance will surely come." And it did, for he became our 16th president. If we look closely at people who are successful, we find that they work very hard. We also find that they have found a way to provide a service for other people at the right price and of the right quality and at the right time. A great man living among you today, former President Eisenhower, has also served well and in many ways. He exemplifies the potential heights of achievement when one is dedicated to serving. 100 years ago, Lincoln stood on the hallowed grounds of this community, not too far from where you are sitting today. In his now famous Gettysburg Address, he referred to the essential element of service when he said, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here." Your town and its surrounding acres have symbols everywhere which remind us of the ways in which many have served. The assuming of responsibility and the essential element of providing service are two important steps that will help you achieve security. They apply not only to great men such as Lincoln and Eisenhower, but they apply equally well to you and me. We need to keep in mind that our first job is just as important as our last. Lincoln assumed the responsibility given him as a young man, just as he did in his closing days as our president. He was dedicated to providing service in his younger days, just as he was dedicated to providing service in his closing task as president of our country. He began building his security as a young man, not after he became president. You can begin building for security now, not after completion of college, or after 5 years on the job, or at your time of retirement. You need to take these two steps now, not only because they will help you achieve security, but because it is morally right that you should do so. At the turn of the century, we could have stopped here and would have had a reasonable formula for finding security. But today things are different, and the future will be such that we need something more than a dedication to responsibility and service in order to build security for ourselves. Suppose we develop this additional approach by using the same technique, by reviewing the experiences and statements of people around us. Recently, a man in his early 60s who had been unemployed for about a year told this story to a company manager. He said that years ago he had the opportunity to move into a more highly skilled job, but he turned it down. Over the years, he had other opportunities for advancement, but preferred to stay in what appeared to be a secure job. The need for persons of his skill declined, and he was eventually laid off. Today, he cannot qualify for a position of greater skill because he is not capable of meeting the new standards that have advanced during his working years. Change had been taking place gradually, but this man did not allow himself to become a part of it. More recently, another man in his early 40s, with 23 years of service at a national firm, told this story. His firm employed 350 people a few years ago. Today, it employs about 100 people and produces more than it did a few years back. This is due, of course, to automated equipment, another example of change. From the large industry to the small business, from the corner grocer to the farmer, all have been affected by change. We know that most of our change is brought about by scientific research and development. Reflect for a minute on how much change has taken place around you in just the past 5 years. Then think of the people who have brought about these changes, the scientists. Weigh this with the fact that nearly all of the scientists this country has ever known are still alive today. This gives you some idea of how rapidly a seemingly small number of people in this profession have helped produce change in our country. We can only conclude that at the rate people are educated in the sciences today, we'll have another tremendous change coming in the next 10 years. Change, then, becomes our third point of concern when it comes to finding security and evaluating the price of security. We must bring ourselves to accept and adapt to change as a third step toward achieving security. Just as we cannot find security by worrying about it, neither can we cope with change by worry. We need to accept it as a way of life and try to do something about it. We need to take the same stand with regard to change as our forefathers took in exploring and settling our nation. They met with many hardships and obstacles, but they accepted them and found ways to overcome them. Now the question might be raised, what are we going to do about change? For the answer, let us turn to a simple illustration. If you are standing on a railroad track and you see a train bearing down on you, the sensible thing to do is to step off the track. Usually when change takes place, it doesn't happen overnight. Most times there are sufficient signs and even verbal directives of conditions to come. Our problem then is not one of failing to see the train, figuratively speaking, but of our own failure to do something about it. Many of us have lost the pioneering spirit possessed by our ancestors. In order to cope with change, we need to dedicate ourselves to this pioneering spirit, to hard work. We need to take advantage of opportunities to retrain ourselves in new skills and new knowledge. We may have to accept a job with a different company, or even in a different part of the state or country. We may have to take a cut in pay to find new opportunity. Yes, now we begin to feel the price of security. Are you ready to pay the price? Are you willing to accept responsibility? Are you willing to provide service? Are you willing to accept and adapt to change? Lincoln, in the closing statement of his Gettysburg Address, said, "It is for the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." And so, I say this is for you, the first graduates of the new Gettysburg Area High School, and for you, the graduates in the centennial anniversary year, to be dedicated to a willingness to pay the price of security. That all those who follow in future classes might be challenged by your example, by your success, by your peace of mind. Congratulations and best wishes to each of you.